Hello, Namaskar, Chapter 5 from the Freedom from the Nun. This is what we are going to read today. So, JK says, before we go any further, I would like to ask you what is your fundamental, lasting interest in life? Putting all oblique answers aside and dealing with the question directly and honestly, what would you answer? Do you know? Isn't it yourself? Anyway, that is what most of us would say if we answered truthfully. I am interested in my progress, my job, my family, the little corner in which I live, in getting a better position for myself, more prestige, more power, more domination over others, and so on. I think it would be logical, wouldn't it, to admit to ourselves that that is what most of us are primarily interested in me first. So, JK here is simply saying that if you will answer this question truthfully, that in what you are interested in most, so you will say at that time that I am interested in myself. That would be the honest answer. I am interested in my progress, my position, my prestige, my power, whatever is centered around me. I am interested in that only most of the time. But when we will reply in with honesty, then only we will reply this thing. Otherwise, we are here to give diplomatic answers. No, I am living for society, this nation, or all those things. But in the center, we all know that we all are working for ourselves only. So, JK says some of us would say that it is wrong to be primarily interested in ourselves. But what is wrong about it except that we seldom decently, honestly admit it? If we do, we are rather ashamed of it. So there it is, one is fundamentally interested in oneself. And for various ideological and traditional reasons, one think it is wrong. But what one thinks is irrelevant. Why introduce the factor of its being wrong? That is an idea, a concept. What is a fact is that one is fundamentally and lastingly interested in oneself. So, JK here is saying that with some culture, with some tradition, with some ideology, we can say that no, it is bad to be centered around ourselves, to be thinking about ourselves all the time. But the reality is that thing. But with ideology, with tradition, with society, or we can say with some shame, we are hardly admitting this thing. But if we will talk about the fact, JK here says, if we will talk about the fact, then fundamentally we are interested in oneself only. You may say that it is more satisfactory to help other than to think about yourself. What's the difference? Is it still self concern? If it gives you greater satisfaction to help others, you are concerned about what will give you greater satisfaction. Here, the same thing. Like, for example, if somebody is saying that no, I'm working for my satisfaction, I'm doing good for society or the poor people or whatever the other people. Why? Because it is giving me some satisfaction, it is giving me peace, it is uplifting me spiritually. All these arguments you can give. But again, if you will see that whatever you are doing, whatever you are getting, that is you who is getting that peace, that satisfaction, that upliftment, anything means whatever you are doing, even at that time, it is only concerned with you. Why bring any ideological concept into it? Why this double thinking? Why not say what I really want is satisfaction, whether in sex or in helping others or in becoming great saint, scientist or politician? It is the same process, isn't it? Satisfaction in all sorts of ways, subtle and obvious, is what we want. When we say we want freedom, we want it because we think it may be wonderfully satisfying. And the ultimate satisfaction, of course, is this peculiar idea of self realization. What we're really seeking is a satisfaction in which there is no dissatisfaction at all. So JK here is saying that the satisfaction that you are searching by helping others, by becoming saint or scientist, or in sex and in materialistic life, in whatever sense you are finding that satisfaction, somebody could be satisfied with money, somebody could be satisfied with the power, somebody could be satisfied by serving others, so in or somebody could be satisfied with gaining knowledge. So, in whatever path, in whatever way you are pursuing, overall you are thinking, you are talking about satisfaction that is about you and you only. Maybe the path are different, maybe the medium are different, but the center around which everything is being done by you is only and only you. So JK further says most of us crave the satisfaction of having a position in society because we are afraid of being nobody. Society is so constructed that a citizen who has a position of respect is treated with great courtesy, whereas a man who has no position is kicked around. Everyone in the world wants a position, whether in society, in the family, or to sit on the right hand of God. And this position must be recognized by others. Otherwise, it is no position at all. We must always sit on the platform. Inwardly, we are whirlpools of misery and mischief, and therefore, to be regarded outwardly as a great figure is very gratifying. This line is very important. Inwardly, we are in misery and mischief. That's why, from the outside, we are searching something great, which will satisfy our ego actually. So, it's all about the position in the society that we want some power because our society is constructed in this way. So, either we are becoming a politician, we are gaining a position as a power taker, or we are becoming God man, like I am the representation of God here in front of you. Somebody can say this thing. So by different positions, we are striving that position. We're trying to occupy that position so that we will have a respect in society. Externally, always remember, because in from the inside you are miserable. That's why you are searching something which will satisfy your ego and which will satisfy you from the outside. This craving for position, for prestige, for power, to be recognized by society as being outstanding in some way, is a wish to dominate others. And this wish to dominate is a form of aggression. The saint who seeks a position in regard to his saintliness is as aggressive as the chicken picking in the farmyard. And what is the cause of this aggressiveness? It's figure. It's fear, isn't it? It's fear. Why it's fear? Now try to understand why fear. Why we want this domination in society? And why JK is saying that it is aggressiveness. Why? Because we are afraid that if we will not become that thing, if we will not get that position, at that time what will happen? We will be nobody in the society. Nobody will respect us. And with this fear, we strive for all those positions and power. Even a saint who is putting himself or herself in such a position which shows that that saint is superior to common people, it is also a form of aggressiveness. JK says, fear is one of the greatest problem in life. A mind that is caught in fear lives in confusion, in conflict, and therefore must be violent, distorted, and aggressive. It dare not move away from its own pattern of thinking, and this breeds hypocrisy. Until we are free from fear, climb the highest mountain, invent every kind of God, we will always remain in darkness. So, here, until we are free from fear, climb the highest mountain, invent every kind of God, we will always remain in darkness. Why? And just remember, if you will read Bhagavad Gita, all the confusion, all the vishad that has been shown by Arjuna, that was all because of fear. If you will understand, if you will read Bhagavad Gita, then you will understand the only thing that Krishna is saying, that be fearless. And why in the shlok second and third of chapter 2, if you will read Bhagavad Gita, you will understand there that Krishna said to Arjuna that you need the whatever the ranting you are doing, whatever the problem you are facing at the moment, Arjun, that is all because of your ego, the ahankara. And that ahankara is very fragile. Always remember, ego is always fragile. Ego is always afraid. That's why whenever someone will challenge you, some situation will challenge you, you become afraid. And at that time, your ego gets hurt. And all the problem that Arjun was facing at that time, during that war, on that chariot sitting in front of Krishna, it was his ego which was being demolished in that war. He was afraid that somehow he is going to get bad reputation. That's why he was giving so many arguments that these are my kings and brothers and sisters, all those things. So somehow he was very much concerned that what people will say. So all those things that overall the problem was the fear that was arising in the mind of, or in the heart of Arjuna. And all these fears, the Krishna said the reason for that fear was that your ego, your ahankara is the problem. So here JK says, living in such a corrupt, stupid society as we do, with the competitive education we receive, which engenders fear, we are all burdened with fear of some kind, and fear is a dreadful thing which wraps, twists, and dulls our days. This is a physical fear, but and listen, fear one thing. JK is targeting or pointing out our education system, competitive education system, and this is very much true. We all have went to schools and colleges, and just see what we are learning there. In what situation this system is putting us. We have been become so competitive, and because of this competition, that we have to defeat others. At that time, the fear, so much fear mongering is there in the students' world. JK says there is physical fear, but that is the response we have inherited from the animals. This is psychological fear we are concerned with here. For when we understand the deep rooted psychological fears, we will be able to meet the animal fears. Whereas to be concerned with the animal fear first will never help us to understand the psychological fear. This is very important. Again, I will give reference to the Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because Bhagavad Gita is all about psychology. Arjuna perhaps was not afraid physically because he was a great warrior. Whatever the fear he was facing at that time during the war, during the beginning of the war, it was all psychological. So here JK is saying that the physical fear we all face, it's the response thing. Like every animal is also doing that. Every animal wants to save itself. That's why we have that responsiveness whenever we face any physical danger. But JK here is pointing out this psychological fear, that this is the main problem. And JK also pointing out that once we will deal this psychological fear, we can tackle that physical fear. But if you are only concerned or thinking about that physical fear, then it is not guaranteed that your psychological fear will go. And you will also see in your life that Suppose that you have to jump from a wall. Try to understand this thing. You are afraid. Physically, that is not a big deal. A 5 foot, 6 foot, 7 foot wall, it's not a big deal to jump from there. But what you find at that time, it's the psychological fear which is stopping you from jumping. And once you jump, then you realize, okay, that was not a big deal. And at that time, you conquered that physical, psychological fear. And after that, that physical fear has also gone. So first, we need to conquer that psychological thing. And that's why Krishna was also teaching or trying to guide Arjuna that get rid of this psychological fear. After that, do the war. So, we are all afraid about something. There is no fear in abstraction. It's always in relation to something. Do you know your own fears? Fear of losing your job, of not having enough food or money, or what your neighbors or public think about you, or not being success, or losing your position in society, of being despised or ridiculed, fear of pain and disease, of domination, of never knowing what love is, or of what being loved, of losing your wife or children, of death, of living in a world that is like death, of utter boredom, of not having up to the image others have built about you, of losing your faith. All these and innumerable other fears, do you know your own particular fear? So here JK raises a question that do you know your particular fear? And if you see all the types of fear that JK mentioned here, we all know that these fears are real, and most of us have faced all of them. That the fear of society, the fear of pain and disease and the domination, the fear that what public will say, what people will say, what neighbor will say, what family people will say. If I will lose a job, what I will do? If I'm not successful, how people will perceive me? These sort of fears are there in our mind. And all these fears are psychological. These are not real fear. Try to understand. These are not physical fear. These all are psychological fears. And what do you usually do about them? You run away from them, don't you? Or invent ideas and images to cover them. But to run away from fear is only to increase it. So here, JK here is pointing very real thing that we try to hide these fears. We are not conquering it. We are just escaping from it. We are just closing our eyes and we try to give different excuses so that these fears could be covered. But JK here is saying that this running away from fear is not the solution. Rather, it will increase it. It is very important. So one of the major cause of fear is that we do not want to face ourselves as we are. We are not facing the truth. So, as well as the fears themselves, we have to examine the network of escapes we have developed to rid ourselves of them. If the mind, in which included the brain, tries to overcome fear, to suppress it, discipline it, control it, translate it into terms of something else, there is friction, there is conflict, and that conflict is waste of energy. So what here JK is pointing that if you'll try to overcome it by hiding it, with your mind and brain, you are trying to discipline, suppress, or control it, or translate it into something else. That okay, this fear is not real, I have to cover it, okay, all these excuses I'm creating to escape from this. And I'm developing something to get rid of all these things, all this fear. At that time, what will happen? This is whatever our imagination, with my mind, I'm creating some excuses and trying to understand. Because of this, you are imagining something which is not the reality. And from the reality, you are trying to escape. And you are creating something in your mind, some excuses, some discipline, some different approach. And at that time, what is happening? It is creating some friction. And because of this friction, conflict is happening. And it is consuming you. And now try to understand this thing. Suppose that you are afraid, you are in confusion in your life, you are confused in your life. At that time, what happens? You start to overthink. And overthinking means what? You are not finding the solution. You are not trying to fight that fear and the problem. We try to create some excuses and the way so that we can get rid of that fear. At that time, we get very tired. If you will see, your face is very sad. Anybody can understand. Okay, you are upset. You are tensed. So all at that time, it is very easy to understand that we are losing a lot of energy with just this mental friction, with this mental conflict that we are creating with against the reality. The first thing to ask ourselves is, what is fear and how does it arise? What do you mean by the word fear itself? I am asking myself, what is fear, not what I am afraid of. So, I am asking myself, what is fear, not what I'm afraid of. So, the question is asking the question that what is fear? I'm not asking that what I'm afraid of. I just want to know what is fear. Here, the question is the word fear itself, what does it mean? I'm not asking that, okay, because of this I'm afraid, because of this I'm afraid, because of the exam I'm afraid, because of the losing of the job, because of the recession I'm afraid. JK here is pointing out, I don't want the cause. I am concerned here, and my question is regarding the consequence. The why this afraid? What is this fear? What is this fear? So JK says, I lead a certain kind of life. I think in a certain pattern. I have certain beliefs and dogmas, and I don't want those patterns of existence to be disturbed because I have my roots in them. I don't want them to be disturbed because the disturbance produces a state of unknowing, and I dislike that. If I am torn away from everything I know and I believe, I want to be reasonably certain of the state of the thing to which I am going. So the brain cells have created a pattern, and those brain cells refuse to create another pattern which may be uncertain. The movement from certainty to uncertainty is what I call fear. And this line, somebody in my personal life also told me that what is fear. So at that time, that person told me that we are afraid of unknown. Like for example, in the dark, suppose that you are living in a big house alone. In the daytime, you are not afraid that much. If you afraid, then in the daytime it's normal. But when the night is there, when it's night, the whole system is silent. It's the darkness around, and again you feel fear. You are afraid in that big house alone. Why? Although you know everything that what is there in which room, what is kept, then again why that fear is there? Why we are afraid at night in a big house alone? Because at that time, in that darkness, we are afraid of that unknown part, which is not visible to us, and we are not sure what is there in that darkness. Although our mind is saying that, okay, in that room there is a bed, there is a fan, there is a chair, there is a table, but still I am unable to see. And at that time, there could be the possibility of something unknown for which we are not prepared. So here JK is also pointing out this thing. So most of the time we have some knowledge about the surrounding or the state in which I am at the moment. So whenever something unknown comes in front of us, that gives the friction. Why? Because from this present state, if something new comes in front of me, at that time, with that I will be transmitted to or transited to something new, some new state. At that time, I'm afraid of that new state because I am unknown. That new state is unknown to me. I don't know everything about that state. And because of this, the fear arises in us. Whenever we break some pattern, that fear arises. So, at the actual moment I am sitting here, I am not afraid. I am not afraid in the present. Nothing is happening to me. Nobody is threatening me or taking anything away from me. But beyond the actual moment, there is a deeper layer in the mind which is consciously or unconsciously thinking of what might happen in the future or worrying that something from the past may overtake me. So I'm afraid of the past and the future. I'm divided I have divided time into the past and the future. Though steps in says thought steps in and it says be careful, it doesn't happen again, or be prepared for the future. So here what? Be careful, it does not happen again means we are afraid of the past. Some bad experience and the past is again and again saying that it should not happen again. Or we are afraid of the future and that's why future is warning us be prepared for the future. It is demanding that we need to be prepared because some unknown thing can happen. And I am living at this moment. I am thinking about that past and the future. Past is haunting me that this should not happen. And the future is warning me that some unknown thing, some unwanted thing can happen. Be prepared. So the future may be dangerous for you. You have got something now, but you may lose it. You may die tomorrow, your wife may run away, you may lose your job, may never become famous, you may be lonely, you want to be quite sure of tomorrow. So all of us, that's why this astrology and numerology things is happening in the society. Because we all want to know what is there for us in the future. We just want to be sure. We don't want to be unsure. We are not liking that uncertainty in our life. We want certainty. We want to know what is there in the future. We just want to be assured that okay, whatever this is thing happening. But the unknown thing, that uncertainty, that unsureness, those things are haunting us, making us afraid and giving us the fear in our mind. So, now take your own particular form of fear. Look at it. Watch your reaction to it. Can you look at it without any movement of escape, justification, condemnation, or suppression? Can you look at the fear without the word which causes the fear? Can you look at death, for instance, without the word which arouses the fear of death? Can you look at death, for instance, without the word which arouses the fear of death? The word itself brings a tremor, doesn't it? As the word love has its own tremor, its own image. Now is the image you have in your mind about death, the memory of so many deaths you have seen, and the associating of yourself with those incidents. Is it that image which is creating fear? Or are you actually afraid of coming to an end, not of the image creating the end? Is the word death causing you fear or the actual ending? If it is the word or the memory which is causing you fear, then it's not fear at all. You were ill 2 years ago. Let us say, just imagine that you were ill 2 years ago. And the memory of that pain, that illness remains, and the memory now functioning says, be careful, don't get ill again. So the memory with its associations is creating fear. And that is not fear at all, because actually at that moment you have very good health. Thought, which is always old, because thought is the response of memory, and memories are always old. Thought creates in time the feeling that you are afraid, which is not an actual fact. The actual fact is that you are well, but the experience which has remained in the mind as a memory, rouses the thought, be careful, don't fall ill again. So JK here is pointing a very subtle question, that we are not afraid the reality, but our thoughts are creating all those fear. And thoughts are the result of the memories. And with those memories, our thoughts are just taking care of all those fear. The thoughts are saying that you need to be very much careful. You have fallen ill once, you have suffered the pain. Though at the moment you are absolutely fine, absolutely healthy, absolutely alive, but still those thoughts are coming and saying that okay, don't fall ill because you have faced it. And because of this, that fear arises. Like for example, at the moment you are alive, but again the thoughts are coming that in future you will die. Though that thing is not happening at the moment, still those thoughts are coming, bringing that situation, that creating that situation. And at that time, you are afraid again. So we see that th- we see that thought engenders one kind of fear. But is there fear at all apart from that? So JK here is asking question, is there any fear at all apart from that? Is fear always the result of thought? And if it is there any other form of fear? So question is the fear only result from thoughts, or there are some other form of fear? So he is asking question. We are afraid of death. That is something that is going to happen tomorrow or the day after tomorrow in time. So we all know that sooner or later in future we all going to die. It's a reality. So there is a distance between the actuality and what will be. And the moment you are alive, healthy, absolutely fine, but the death is inevitable. That is going to come. That is waiting for us. When we all of us know this thing. It's not a hidden secret. At least since our childhood, maybe you can say after a after the age of 9, 10 years, all of us just know that death is inevitable. And not for us only, all the people that we love, all the people around us, all of them are going to die one day. And we all of us know. Now, thought has experienced this state. By observing death, it says, I am going to die. Thought creates the fear of death. And if it doesn't, is there any fear at all? And now, this is the reality. We all know we are going to die. But the thought comes, and then it will bring that feeling of fear in us that okay, we are going to die. I am going to die. So JK here is saying that is there any other fear which is arising in us beside thoughts? Is fear the result of thought? If it is, thought being always old, fear is always old. As we have said, there is no new thought. Because there is no new thought means JK already pointed that whatever we are thinking, whatever we are calculating and imagining, it's uh, in the sense of thinking, all the thoughts are the result of memories. Because try to understand this thing, whatever we can think, try to apply this thing on yourself. Whatever you can think is only and only is the result of what you already know. Try to think. Like for example, even if you'll see the Hollywood movies, all the aliens that we are showing, all the aliens which we are showing, whatever the structure of those aliens the movie is presenting, all of them are inspired by the structure of human. They have eyes, they can think, they can talk, walk, all those features that we have, we are showing that thing to the aliens. It means even we are creating some creature which is unknown to us, unknown to humanity, unknown to earth. Still, the creator, whoever creating that those characters of alien, still our thoughts are inspired by whatever we know, whatever we have as memories, nothing else. So, if we recognize it, JK says, if we recognize it, it is already old. So, what we are afraid of is the repetition of the old, the thought of what has been projecting to the future. Therefore, thought is responsible for fear. This is so. You can see it for yourself. When you are confronted with something immediately, there is no fear. It is only when thought comes in that there is fear. Therefore, our question now is it possible for the mind to live completely, totally in the present? It's only such a mind that has no fear. Why? Because if you are living in the present, you are not taking data from the past, you are not taking prediction from the future, you are not living there either in the past or in the future. Your present is so expanded that those thoughts are not coming from the past. You are just living in the moment, you are experiencing the things. And when the thoughts which are coming from the past memories, when those things will not be there is no chance that fear will arise. So this is the only it is only such a mind that has no fear. Which one? Which is living in the present only. But to understand this, you have to understand the structure of thought, memory, and time. And in understanding it, understanding not intellectually, not verbally, but actually with your heart, with your mind, with your guts, you will be free from the fear. Then the mind can use thought without creating fear. So once you will realize, JK here is saying that we don't have to understand this concept not just intellectually, not verbally. Like, okay, I have read Bhagavad Gita, so okay, I know what Krishna is saying. No, it's not the point. It's realizing that what is being said. Like for example, we are saying that we need to be living in present. It's not mere the intellectual concept or verbal concept. We have to really follow this, we have to experience this feeling that okay, we are living in present. So with that thing, JK here is saying that once we, with our mind, with our body, with our guts, with our body, we are living in this way, like we are living in the present, at that time we can use our mind. Our mind can use the thought without creating fear. Why? Because those thoughts which are coming from the past or the future using the memory, those things are being created, those things are creating the fear. So JK says thought, like memory, is of course necessary for daily living. It is the only instrument we have for communication, working at our jobs, and so forth. Thought is the response to memory. Memory which has been accumulated through experience, knowledge, tradition, time. And from this background of memory, we react, and this reaction is thinking. So, thought is essential at certain levels, but when thought projects itself psychologically as the future and as the past, creating fear as well as pleasure, the mind is made dull and therefore inaction is inevitable. So, here, what JK here is pointing out very practical thing, try to understand. We need our memory, try to understand this thing. We need our memory, we need our thought, because in our daily life we have our job, we have our knowledge, tradition, and we have to respond to the society, to the surrounding. We need to communicate. And how we are going to communicate in our day to day life? By our thoughts of the past that we have learned. So at some certain level we have to use our thoughts and memories, there is no doubt. Otherwise, how would we live in this society, in this world? Now the question here is, at a higher level, JK here is saying, when So all those things, like I'm using memory in our job, I'm thinking. Thinking is what? Just restructuring our memories and whatever knowledge I have. This is called thinking. Like for example, you are thinking for a problem in your job. It's mean whatever you have learned regarding that field in your college, in your school, or in your job section, in your company, whatever place you are. So at that time, critical thinking means what? You are thinking about that problem, which is your domain, and you have domain knowledge. Now, JK here is pointing out, like for example, till that level, it's okay to use your memory and thought. But when those thoughts become out of control, when those thoughts start to project the future, and those things are not by you, but that thing is working automatically, at that time that becomes dangerous. When psychologically those thoughts are capturing you, you are not, when those thoughts are out of control of you, then they create fear. And in Sanatan, or you will say in Bhagavad Gita, that is called Maya. Why Maya? One is the real existence in which we are living. Like, for example, I have a microphone in front of me, I have a tablet on which I'm reading this book. These are the real existence. These things are as real as I am. If I am the real, then these things are real. This is called real Jagat in Bhagavad Gita. And there is another aspect which is called Maya, which is called the illusion. And illusion is not the real part. These things, the illusion that Maya has been created by us. And in that illusionary world, and in that Maya world, Maya Dunya, we create a different world, a illusionary, imaginary world. And there, our thoughts have captured us. And there, our thoughts are creating all those future and the bad experiences of our past. And we don't have any control on that thing. And in that Mayavi world, in that illusionary world, our thoughts are creating those fear, and the impact of those fears are real in our real world. That's why Krishna says, break this Maya. Once you will break this Maya, you will be living the real life. Like JK here is talking, that you have to live at the moment, at the present thing. And all those thoughts should be in your control. Whenever you want, in whatever purpose you want, you will use those things. So JK says, I ask myself, JK says, I ask myself, why do I think about the future and the past in terms of pleasure and pain, knowing that such thought creates fear? Isn't it possible for thought psychologically to stop for ourselves? For otherwise, fear will never end. So unless until those thought psychologically will not stop, this fear is not going to end. One of the functions of thought is to be occupied all the time with something. Most of us want to have our minds continually occupied so that we are prevented from seeing ourselves as we actually are. We are afraid to be empty. We are afraid to look at other fears. Consciously, you can be aware of your fears, but at the deeper level of your mind, you are aware of them, are you? And now, how are you going to find out the fears that are hidden, that are secret? Is fear to be divided into conscious and the subconscious? This is a very important question. The specialist, the psychologist, and the analyst have divided fear into deep, superficial layers. But if you follow what the psychologist says and what I say, you are understanding our theories. You are understanding our theories, our dogmas, our knowledge, you are not understanding yourself. So JK here is saying that if you are following the psychologist, even JK is saying that if you are following what I am saying, JK himself is saying, at that time you are understanding their theories, their dogmas, their understanding. You are not understanding your own fear, your own psychology. And you cannot understand yourself according to Freud or Jung or according to me. And this is absolutely correct, and I totally agree with this. So everyone is totally different from other. If any psychologist, whoever that psychologist may be, maybe that psychologist is amazing. He may have understood psychology for many years. He may have written many books or understood or worked in this field for many years. In spite of this, every individual is different. That's why personally I don't believe in I don't follow any philosophy or any ism in my life. Why? Because any philosophy which has been proposed by some philosopher is the point of view of that person. Maybe that philosophy has worked for that person. But if I'll follow that philosophy 100%, if I will follow some psychologist 100%, at that time I am superimposing their thoughts on me, on myself. Maybe, but now what should I do? I should be studying myself individually. And whatever the results are coming, it may be aligned with some philosophy, it may be aligned with some psychologist. That is totally different thing. But if I'll try to understand myself in the point of view some other philosopher or in the point of view of some psychologist, at that time I'm not understanding myself purely. So JK says you can't understand yourself according to the Freud or Jung or according to me. Other people's theories have no importance whatever. It is of yourself that you must ask the question: is fear to be divided into conscious or subconscious? Or is there any only fear? Is there only fear which you translate into different form? So now question is, are you going to divide your fear at subconscious level or conscious level? Or you are just translating it into different form and the fear is just one simple form. You are just dividing into some different layers. There is only one desire. There is only desire. You desire. The objects of desire change, but desire is always the same. So perhaps in the same way, there is only fear. You are afraid of all sorts of things, but there is only one fear. When you realize that fear can't be divided, you will see that you have put away altogether this problem of subconscious and so have cheated the psychologists and analysts. When you understand that fear is a single movement which expresses itself in different ways, and when you see the movement, not the object to which movement goes, then you are facing an immense question. How can you look at it without the fragmentation which the mind has cultivated? So here Jake is simply pointing out one thing, that you have to see the fear as a whole, not at some level or some conscious or subconscious level. Like for example, there are desire. So you may have desire for women, you may have desire for car, you may have desire for power, you may have desire for money. The objects are different, you are projecting on different things, but what is being projected? Your desire. This is the one that you have. In the same way, you have fear, one which is which is creating afraid, which is creating fear because of different things. The projection could be different, but the fear is one. So there is only total fear. But how can the mind, which thinks in fragments, observe this total picture? Can't it? We have lived a life of fragmentation, and can look at that total fear only through the fragmentary process of thought. The whole process of the machinery of thinking is to break up everything into fragments. I love you and I hate you. You are my enemy, you are my friend, my peculiar idiosyncrasies and inclinations, my job, my positions, my prestige, my wife, my child, my country and your country, my God and your God. All that is the fragmentation of thought. And this thought looks at the total state of fear, or tries to look at it and reduces it to fragments. Therefore, we see that the mind can look at this total fear only when there is no movement of thought. Can you watch fear without any conclusion, without any interference of knowledge you have accumulated about it? If you can't, then what you are watching is the past, not fear. If you can, then you are watching fear for the first time without the interference of the past. So what is this? Read again. Can you watch fear without any conclusion, without any interference of knowledge you have accumulated about it? Why this question is important? Can you watch it without the knowledge of accumulated words or stories about it? Like for example, you are afraid of failure of exam. So can you watch this fear without the prior knowledge of exam? Why exam is so dangerous? What happens if you are not successful in the exam? All this information you have, try to understand this thing. All the consequences you have if I am not doing good in exam. So at that time, JK here is saying that can you watch that fear of exam without all the memories, all the knowledge that you have accumulated regarding the failure in exam? If you are not using those accumulated knowledge, then at that time there would be no fear of exam in you. So JK says, if you can't, then what are you watching is the past, not fear. So overall, we know that we can't be afraid of exams if we have no idea about the failure of exams, or what could it happen, what consequences it can bring, what will people say, what parents will say, what teacher will say. All these things you have no idea. At that time there would be no fear of the exam. And now try to understand this thing. JK here is saying that if you can't see that fear because of those knowledge, because of lack of those memories, then at that time JK simply is saying that you are not actually seeing the fear, you are actually seeing the past, all the memories that you accumulated. And if you can, then you are watching fear for the first time without interference of the past. And if you can literally see the fear, watch the fear without the accumulated knowledge, at that time you will be seeing the fear first time. So JK says you can watch only when the mind is very quiet. Just as you can listen to what somebody is saying only when your mind is not chattering with itself, carrying on a dialogue with itself about its problem and anxieties. Can you in the same way look at your fear without trying to solve it, without bringing in its opposition, courage? So here JK is saying that you have to see the fear without judging it. See that fear without the intention of solving it. You see the fear, was that fear without bringing its opposite, which is the courage. Actually look at it and not try to escape from it. When you say, I must control it, you must get rid of it, I must understand it, you are trying to escape from it. Whenever you are watching a fear, And at that time, with this intention that you want to kill it, you want to solve it, you want to resolve it, you want to understand that fear, at that time, what you are doing, you are simply trying to escape from that fear. And with that fear will never go. The reality is this: you can observe a cloud or a tree or the movement of a river with a fairly quiet mind because they are not very important to you. But to watch yourself is far more difficult because there the demands are so practical, the reactions so quick. So when you are directly in contact with fear or despair, loneliness or jealousy, or any other ugly state of mind, you can look at it so completely that your mind is quite enough to see it. Can the mind perceive fear and not the different form of fear? Perceive total fear, not what you are afraid of. If you look merely at the details of fear or try to deal with your fear one by one, if you look merely at the details of fear or try to deal with your fears one by one, you will never come to the central issue, which is to learn to live with fear. Learn to live with fear. So JK here is saying you don't need to escape from it. Don't try to escape from it. Don't try to kill it. Don't try to understand it. Just live with that fear. To live with a living thing, such a fear requires a mind and a heart that are extraordinarily subtle, that have no conclusion and can therefore follow every moment of fear. Then, if you observe and live with it, and this doesn't take a whole day, it can take a minute or a second to know the whole nature of fear. If you live with it so completely, you inevitably ask, who is the entity who is living with fear? Who is who? Who is it? Who is observing fear, watching all the movement of various forms of fear, as well as being aware of the central fact of the fear? Is the observer a dead entity, a static being who has accumulated a lot of knowledge and information about himself? And is it that dead thing who is observing and living with the movement of fear? Is the observer the past or is he living thing? What is your answer? Do not answer me, answer yourself. Are you, the observer, a dead entity watching a living thing? Or you are a living thing watching a living thing? Because in the observer, the two states exist. The observer is the sensor who does not want fear. The observer is the totality of all its experiences about fear. So the observer is separate from the thing he calls fear. There is space between them. He is forever trying to overcome it or escape from it, and hence this constant battle between himself and fear, this battle which is such a waste of energy. So JK here is saying that you have to live, you have to understand your fear in such a way that the fear should be there, you as an observer should be there, and there should not be any fight against that fear. Don't try to get rid of it. Don't try to kill it. Just let it be there, and you should be there. You just need to be aware that that fear is a living thing and you are a living thing. That's all. And if that harmony will come, that synchronization will come, then there would not be any friction. And if there is no friction, there is no wastage of energy. As you watch, you learn that observer is merely a bundle of ideas, memories without any validity or substance. But that fear is an actuality, and that you are trying to understand a fact with an abstraction, which is, of course, you can't do. But in fact, is the observer who says, I'm afraid, any different from things observed, which is fear. The observer is fear, and when that is realized, there is no longer any dissipation of energy in the form of get rid of fear, and the time space interval between the observer and the observed disappears. When you see that you are a part of fear, not separate from it, that you are fear, then you can't do anything about it. Then fear comes totally to an end. So, in the end, I understood what, in one line, I will say the JK here is pointing that whoever you are, that fear will be there. Don't try to create a conflict between you as an observer and the fear. Otherwise, it will unnecessarily will dissipate energy, wastage of energy. Stop this. How? By simply living in harmony with the sphere. This is also living and you are living at that time when there will be no conflict, there will be no fighting with that fear. At that time, you and fear becomes one. And when you and the fear becomes one, at that time, for you, fear is nothing. It doesn't exist anymore. So, to just, we need to absorb that fear in ourselves. You can't get rid of it, you can't get away from it, you can't kill that fear. You just have to absorb that fear inside you. And you have to be in harmony with that fear. At that time, those fear will never make you afraid of anything. So, with that, this chapter 5 ended. I hope you liked this video, you understood something what J. Krishnamurti wanted to say. See you in the next video with chapter 6. Till then, stay healthy, stay happy. Peace.